Let's be honest, modern parenting can feel impossible. You're swimming in endless, often conflicting advice. The goal of this explainer is to cut through all that noise and give you a clear, evidence-based framework to work with.
Because what if the secret isn't about finding some perfect rulebook? What if it's about shifting our perspective, moving toward a more flexible approach that actually empowers you to make the best decisions for your own unique family?
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with a whole new playbook. Then we'll dive into the teenage brain, tackle discipline in the digital world, and wrap things up by looking at mental well-being for everyone in the family.
Okay, let's jump right in with this new playbook. It's really about moving beyond a rigid list of do's and don'ts.
This is the idea at the heart of it all: evidence-based parenting. Now, this doesn't mean you just blindly follow the latest study you see online. It's actually a method for actively making informed choices. Choices that are grounded in solid data, expert knowledge, and crucially, your family's reality.
A great way to think about this is like a three-legged stool. For it to be stable, you absolutely need all three legs. The first leg is the research evidence. The second is clinical expertise, what professionals have seen work. And the third is your family's own unique values and needs. If you take away any one of those legs, the whole thing just falls apart.
All right, now let's apply this framework to, well, one of the most talked about phases of parenting, the teenage years. Because what we often see and label as rebellion is, when you look at the science, something else entirely. It's development.
This really reframes everything, doesn't it? The adolescent brain is going through this massive rewiring, which creates these fundamental needs. They need to explore and take healthy risks. They need to find meaning, build an identity, and figure out their place in the social world. These aren't just random whims, they are powerful biological drives.
This brings us right to the topic of discipline, which is just full of misconceptions. The most important shift we can make is to move away from just stopping a behavior and toward actively teaching a new skill. Let's really break this down, because it's a game changer. Punishment is all about being reactive. Its only goal is to make a behavior stop right now. Discipline, on the other hand, is proactive. The word actually comes from a Latin word meaning to teach. It forces you to ask a different question. What skill does my child need to learn so this doesn't happen again? It's a really powerful shift in thinking. And when we look at the evidence on physical punishment, well, the research is crystal clear. Methods like spanking just don't work. In fact, the data consistently shows they can make things worse, often leading to more aggression and defiance in the long run.
So what does work? This analogy of a pilot flying through turbulence is just the perfect way to explain what's called authoritative parenting. You show warmth and empathy, I get it, this is scary, while also providing very firm, confident structure. Stay in your seats, I've got this, I will land the plane. It's that combination of warmth and clear boundaries that builds real security.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in every room: screens and the digital world. The conversation around this is so often driven by fear. We're going to try and set that aside for a moment and really focus on the facts.
This is the big one, isn't it? It's the question on almost every parent's mind. And you see headlines all the time that give a very simple and very scary answer. But the reality, it's just not that simple. The truth is, the link is incredibly complex. For one thing, a lot of these big data sets are tracking feelings of sadness, not clinical diagnoses of depression. And historically, suicide rates for teenage boys were actually higher in the late 80s and 90s, before any of this technology. Plus, mental health challenges have been rising across almost all age groups, not just teens. The bottom line is, there's no simple cause and effect story here. And while we're on the topic, let's just debunk a huge myth right now: the dopamine detox. This idea that screens are hijacking a kid's brain like a drug is just not scientifically accurate. Dopamine isn't an evil chemical. It's a normal, necessary part of motivation for everything we do. Equating screen time with hard drug addiction is a really harmful oversimplification.
So instead of getting stuck on finding the right age for a phone, here's a much more useful framework: the 4 R's. Responsibility. Can they actually take care of an expensive device? Rules. Will they follow the ones you set? Risks. Do they understand the potential dangers? And reasons. Why do they really need one right now? This shifts the whole conversation from age to actual maturity.
For our last section, let's connect all these ideas back to mental well-being, not just for our kids, but for us too.
Take a look at this number: 94%. What do you think that represents? Well, that's the estimated percentage of people, up to 94%, who experience unwanted, intrusive thoughts. You know those weird, bizarre, or sometimes disturbing thoughts that just pop into your head? It turns out that's an almost universal human experience.
And here is the single most important thing to understand about them. Intrusive thoughts are just brain static. They are not secret desires, they do not mean you're a bad person, and crucially, they are not associated with an increased chance of acting on them. The best strategy, backed by research, is simply to notice the thought, label it as just a thought, and let it pass.
So finally, when is it time to seek professional help? The guidance here is actually pretty simple and hopefully destigmatizing. If you find yourself wondering whether you or your child could benefit from therapy, that's your sign. That's a good enough reason to explore it. You don't have to wait for a full-blown crisis. And remember, finding the right therapist is a process. It's perfectly okay to try a few to find the right fit.
And that brings us right back to where we started, in the middle of all the chaos of modern parenting. Maybe the goal isn't to follow every single rule perfectly. Maybe what really matters is using these kinds of tools to build a strong, flexible foundation of trust and connection, because that's what will last a lifetime.
Please like this video and subscribe.